I'll be referring to some of those topics today. Have you started recording? Yes, excellent. Recording started. So let's dive straight in. This session is really just to explain the scope of the exam. I'm not going to be talking about how to do things specifically within Power BI, though I might show a couple of things depending how much time I've got, because this is a really broad exam. And I'm going to talk about the scope of it, explain the objectives, work through all of the objectives, try and give you a flavour of what they're actually asking you, the sort of level of knowledge you need, and some of what we just saw in the previous session. You need to know some of that, but not necessarily in that detail. So I'll try and give you an idea how much you need to know. I'm also going to direct you at some resources to help you prepare for the exam. My name is Julian Sharp. For those who don't know me, I've been involved in Dynamics since it first came out, almost 20 years ago now. But really, for the last 3 or 4 years, all I've really done is Power Platform. I really very much Power Platform, and I've been a long advocate of Power BI. I've been using it in all my studies. Even if I do Power BI dashboards for virtually everything I do, even if it's very simple, I use that as my way of giving people visualizations on data, allowing them to get insights into their data. And I've done around 100 Microsoft certifications now, including the old BI MCSA, which was Excel and Power BI, and the DA-100. I also teach this as well. I teach Power BI. I do a lot of Power BI introductory teaching as well, people getting started in it. So we've only got an hour. I could probably spend the whole day on this. So if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat. I'll be monitoring it, and I may answer it as I go along. I may say, let's do it later on, but you can use the chat. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time for questions at the end. So when you look at the exam, Microsoft, when they define the exam, they give it a role. What role is it for? They've defined it as the data analyst role. Okay, so we'll look at what that role is, what Microsoft thinks it is, and what I think it is. What does it really mean? We'll go through the exam objectives, and then I'm going to give you how do we prepare for it, and I'm going to point you at some resources to help you prepare. Right, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to, just to help you, I'm going to paste all my links in the chat. It's got links to the videos. It's got every link you're going to see in this presentation is now in the chat. And I'll be discussing some of those links as we go through. First of all, I've got a link to the slides, so you can go download the slides and follow that through with me. Right, the data analyst role. So the way Microsoft writes exams is they first of all define a job role. They've gone from very much a product focused approach to examinations into what they call role focused. The exam is focused on somebody's day-to-day job, the sort of things a person in this role will do. And what you do is you get together and learn as subject matter experts such as myself, where we get around and we define what is this role, what does this person do. And the idea is you don't get the situation where you have to know the ins and outs of every little thing about a product, which you'll never use. In the past, we had to go and do learn all the little things, even if you never use them. So it's very much around the core things that you do. But when you actually look at somebody's role, that can be very broad as well. It can actually bring in more than just the one product. So this is what Microsoft says the role is. Data analysis enables business to maximize the value of their data assets using Power BI. They're responsible for designing and building scalable data models, cleaning and transforming data, etc., as you see there. Working with stakeholders to create and turn business requirements into visualizations. Should have a fundamental understanding of data repositories and data processing. Okay, that's what Microsoft says. And if you go and have a look at the exam page, it'll say that. Great, Rishi, you've got. I'll add that to my list of resources as well that you've done on the session on the exam. I've got some others, Prince as well, and Hasham's sessions on there as well. Whoops, sorry. That's what Microsoft thinks. This is what I think. This is what you need for this exam. This exam is very much around this. It's about creating reports and dashboards using Power BI. So it's really about using Power BI, using all the capabilities of Power BI. And I think it's more skewed towards practical experience than theory. You do need to understand, I think, deeply how you get data into Power BI, both Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service, and then how you cleanse and transform and model that data, and all sorts of things you do with that. So we're going to talk about make use of Power Query. Power Query is one of the key skills, really key skills. You need to be a good understanding of what you can do with Power Query to get your data into Power BI. You then need to model it. You need to understand all the things about modeling, about creating relationships and ordinality and cardinality. Then using DAX, and some really good in that last session, creating, and people talking about creating date tables, understanding how you create date tables, how you create measures, how you do time series intelligence. So you do need to know how to write some DAX queries, I say particularly around time intelligence. You then need to understand which visuals to use. So this is where you get into, okay, which sort of visual would I use in which circumstance, and especially understanding some of the AI visualizations as well. So it is around understanding the capabilities of Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. So if you've not used Power BI Desktop, you will fail this exam. A lot of the work is done. It's not the okay. I can quickly just create any visual dashboard in Power BI Service. It's very simply just point at my data. It's a lot more than that. It's getting data from multiple services, creating a single data model, and then being able to visualize it. So basic statistics? No, I don't think so. It's really not about statistics. You don't need to know about standard deviations or things like that. I would say you need to know the sort of things you do in the classic finance type Power BI, where you want to compare this year with the same month last year, that sort of thing. Those sort of practical. I would say it's very much more practical. And no correlations. I would not say that comes in at all. It helps, but I don't think it's tested so much in the exam. So what's in the scope of the exam? Microsoft has this. They have a little diagram. It's basically what I've said already, who it's for. And here you see the skills measured. These are the things that they actually look at. So preparing the data, modeling the data, visualizing the data, analyzing the data. So we're getting more than just that. So it's more about the AI power and some of the other tools. And then how to deploy and maintain deliverables. This is where I get more into the enterprise space, such as how do I manage workspaces, and also getting into the application lifecycle management part of Power BI. And it is a single exam for an associate level. So we have 3 different levels of examination or certification within Microsoft. We have the fundamentals level. The relevant ones for Power BI are probably the Power Platform fundamentals, the PL-900, or the data platform, DP-900. They're probably relevant for Power BI. But here we have an associate level, which is sort of the associate levels are really aimed, I think, at somebody who's been using this for 6 months to a year, wants to show that they have a minimum level of competency. That's my sort of definition of where an associate is. It's somebody who's got some experience. They're probably, so 6 months plus training, or maybe a couple of years hands-on own experience. They're then ready to go take an associate level exam. Then we have expert levels. There isn't an expert level in Power BI or data, not yet. There might be in the future. Expert level normally somebody's got 3 to 4 years sort of level experience. So we have a Power Platform solution architect. So, and that includes a bit of Power BI in there as well, understanding the different ways you do analysis, how you get your data and that sort of thing. I've got a link. One of the links I've put in the chat is a link to this page. So when we look at exams, they are around 50 questions. You roughly get 50 questions. All right, now the number of minutes has changed. It's now 130 minutes for that exam. If they currently do not have labs in, so labs mean they are what Microsoft call them performance-based labs, where we actually dropped into a live system and you're asked to complete certain activities. Those were withdrawn at the beginning of the pandemic. I don't think we had one for DA-100 anyway, but they were in some of the Azure exams and some of the other exams. They've been withdrawn, but they are going to be coming back at some point. We do know this, but and if you do have a lab in the exam, it's normally at the end, and you get an extra 20 minutes or half an hour if you have one of those. But for me, it's plenty of time in the exam. Okay, so you need to, and there's also a certain amount of time you get. So when you book an exam, it'll say, oh, you've got like 180 minutes. Don't worry, you've got like 10 minutes, 5 minutes or 10 minutes to read the NDA. You've got 20 minutes at the end to give feedback. So we talk about overall exam time where you sat at your desk, and then there's the time to actually take the questions, which is around 130 minutes right now. But I know they're looking at maybe adjusting it. Okay, and you can get, if English isn't your first language, you can ask for adjustments, so you can gain extra time if you want to take it. And I do believe this exam is available in other languages now other than English, but I'm not sure which. Microsoft has committed, I think they said at Inspire only a couple of weeks ago, the Microsoft Partner Conference, that they are going to be looking to put more exams and more of the courseware in more languages. They're committed to it for this financial year. So when we look at exams in the past, if you go back a lot of 5-6 years ago, a lot of the exam questions were very much aimed at the lower end of the cognitive level. So what we call remembering and understanding level. So that's really recall and basic identification. I think Rishi, if that's on my YouTube channel, that had to think. I was going to point that one out as well if I had time. So the exams now very much have moved up the cognitive level. They are now much more at the apply, analyze, and evaluate stage, where you have to often combine 2 or 3 different things together and work out what the answer is. It's more the how and the why, not the what. So you have to be able to interpret some of the exams. It's not, you can't just, this is an exam, particularly this one, I think, you can't just read the material and then just go and do it and regurgitate facts. That's you'll fail. You need to get hands-on. You need to understand what you're actually doing and how things apply. When should I use them? We also have a number of different question types. In the past, they were all what I call MCQ, multiple choice questions. Around half the questions are multiple choice or single or multiple choice. So select 1 from 4 or 2 from 5 answers. We now have about half the other questions are what they call, what's the word? I can't remember the name for it. Interactive type questions. So drag and drop, where you've got to drag answers over and drop them in, or they have a drop down list. So you have to select from a drop down list. You will also see in this exam in particular, lots of exhibits. So an exhibit will be a screenshot, or it might be a screenshot of a page of a Power BI report. It might be a screenshot of a data model in Power BI. It might be a screenshot of just some data in Excel. And what it'll do, it'll then ask you about how you process that data, or what you do to achieve a result. So this exam for me has more exhibits than any other exam I've taken. So that's lots of pictures you have to go look up for. You have to remember to go click on them, where to find them. You'll also have case studies. Pretty sure you'll have a case study in this exam. Some Microsoft exams now have up to 3 case studies. I can't remember how many in this one, but you'll at least have one. And a case study, you get a whole scenario with a lot of points. Often there'll be an overview and sort of some background. Yeah, that's an old picture of my YouTube channel when my beard was short. So case study, you get a whole series of sections. So you get a background, an overview, then you get the requirements. You may get common situation or common technology, and then maybe what they desire, maybe some issues, and then you get a series of questions on them. And so you get up to about 6, commonly around 4 to 5 questions on every case study. And the issue is it can take, when you have the mistake people make when they come to do case study questions is they try and read and understand the entire case study. Now, the way Microsoft actually writes questions, you don't get all, there's a pool of questions. There's probably a pool of around 150 questions for this exam. You'll get a third of them. And on the case study, it's the same. Every case study has a pool of questions and you only get a subset of them. So you only get a subset of the questions, but you get the whole text. You get the whole explanation. And that explanation will cover all the questions. So if you try and understand all the case study and all the scenario and everything else, you won't get asked on, you're only going to get asked on about a third of that case study. So the secret to case studies is actually to read the question. Well, the way I do case studies, I skim the overall problem. I try and get an idea, a feel for what the case study is about. Oh, it's around, I read this, it's about creating a data model and getting my data in. Okay, that's what the model's about. So then I'll go have a look at the question. And then and then what I'll do is I'll then go find the bit in the case study that's relevant to that question. I've seen too many people make a mistake on case studies where they just spend too much time trying to understand it and it's just wasted time. Often there'll be one word or one sentence in the case study. It's just a matter of spotting it, which can take a little bit of time, but it saves you having to work out the entire scenario. So don't worry about cases. They aren't actually that hard. Typically, the questions I think in cases are actually relatively straightforward. It's just find the relevant bit of data for them. Well, for the rest of the questions, they are laid out like this. They're typically made up of 4 parts. Some of these are optional now. They try and reduce. In the past, you may have had questions where you had to, there was a whole scenario. It took you about 20 minutes to read the actual scenario. They've gone away from that. The actual questions are quite short now. You typically have, say, you're a data analyst implementing Power BI report, Power BI dashboards for in a finance company. That's my technical environmental scenario. My problem statement says users are unable to drill down into their data. So that tells you what the problem is or maybe what you're looking at. And then you have a goal. The goal is what you need to answer. The goal is what the question is going to be about. And it typically starts, you need to. You need to enable drill down into the Power BI dashboard so that users can see all the data. And then the question statement is pretty often just what should you do, and varies. The question statements are pretty much always the same for the different type of questions. So if it's a multiple choices, which one should you choose? Oh, that's horrible, Rishi. If you answer the case without reading the questions, that's really horrible. Yeah, I feel for you on that one. So the questions are, if it's like a drag and drop, the select and place type questions, it just tells you what should you do. You just say drag the relevant option to the relevant feature. And that's it. So the question statements are pretty standard. It's the goal that you need to focus on. Now, you'll sometimes find that they don't have a problem statement anymore, or don't even have the technical environment. If you get to fundamentals questions, they try to get them down to like 1-sentence questions, like just a goal and a question statement combined. But in this exam, you'll typically have 3, maybe 4 of these parts. You'll definitely have a goal statement, definitely have a question statement. You may have a technical scenario, and you probably will have a problem statement or requirement. So let's look at the actual exam. No, I can't give you the correct answers. So there are 5 objectives. The way Microsoft does this, they call these the skills measure. We call them objectives. You may see people refer to things as the objective domain, or OD. That's the phrase I use, the term Microsoft use. So we have 5 main objectives. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at these 5 objectives. I don't know why I put this icon in, and break it down, and you get a rough idea of the sort of ratio of questions. So we're going to get 25 to about. Model the data is the biggest one there. Prepare and visualize are about the same. Then analyze, which is the AI bits and doing some other predictions, and deployment is a bit smaller, but they're still significant. And to be honest, the exam, it doesn't always, it's varied. It's not always this clean cut. I think they round them up and down to the nearest 5%. So it's not that much of a guide, but it gives you an idea. So let's have a look now at these first. No, I'm not. Sorry, I'm not showing. I've moved on. If you're still seeing the roll slide, I'm about 5 or 6 slides later on. So if you're asking, I normally say if you not see what I did, exit out, exit the meeting, join back in. I have moved on. So let's move at the objectives now. This first objective, prepare the data, has 3 sub-objectives, which are very high level. It says prepare, get data from different data sources. Okay, what does that mean? Let's go through what those mean. Now, you will do, if you actually go to the exam page, they actually give you can download a PDF which actually explains all of these. So if I go to that page now, I'll just open it up and go to it if I can remember where it is. So if I'll just go to that page now. So I'm just going to go to the DA-100 page. I'll show you where you're going to get this. I think I put it as a link actually in my. Did I put the exam page? No, I don't think I did. So if you actually go to the exam page, I'll show you what you do. If you scroll down, you'll see these 5 bullet points. Oh, there's an update to it coming on July the 29th. I actually didn't notice that, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. At the end, if we get time. And he downloaded the skills outline. You want to do this. The way I prepare for an exam is I download this. This is my master sheet. And here we see we've got to prepare the data with those 3 bullet points. So I've got the get data, profile the data, and clean and transform data. And underneath we have bullets. So these are known as tasks. And you see there's a lot of tasks. Actually, I think this exam has lots of tasks. Compared to some of the other exams, there aren't that many. There's a lot here. I think they try to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's too many. They like to minimize the number of tasks. There's quite a lot in here. So let's just go through and explain what these are. So the way when somebody writes an exam question, you go. So people like me write questions. Microsoft employs subject matter experts internally and externally to write the questions. And what you do is you say, Julian, you've got to write 2 questions on get data from different data sources. So what you do is you go to those bullet points, you pick a bullet point and then write a question on it. That's essentially how it works. So if I was to go back to that list, I might say, okay, choose an appropriate query type. So I'm going to pick one of these from it. And then I'll go find, and when you write a question in Microsoft, you have to have what's called an authoritative answer. You've got to have an authoritative resource that explains the answer. You can't just make it up. You can't just know it. You've got to give a thing. So what we will do is we will go into the Power BI documentation, and we will go and search for something. So I'll go, how do I connect to data? So I'm going to connect to, I'll go find something on here, and I'll maybe search, okay, I want to find something on query type. So I'm going to find what do we mean by query type. It's not really find something. I know what it means. It's but typically query type is going to mean, is it going to be a direct, or is it going to be a direct query, or are going to be importing the data? That's what we mean. Or maybe we'll probably get into things like query folding in here. So query folding is about performance. So you can only do query folding if you use direct query or dual, which is either import or direct query. So understand. So I've looked at that bullet point and I've already got into a few things. And if I was writing the question, so we go back to that page. On this page, query type, I know what query type means. I know it's import or direct query. I'm probably going to write something. Oh, I might be able to bring some other things here. Okay, storage mode, and bring that in. And go, okay, direct query or storage mode. Then look at query folding. I'll probably write a question about query folding in here. When does query folding help, or how do I ensure query folding? But then I have to have something in here that explains what query folding is, or gives me an answer as to why. Okay. So that's how questions are written. So if we go back, have a look at this first. Sub-objective, the get data. This is quite large. There's about 14 different points on that. So it's all the different ways we can get data in, how we can connect to data sources. So how do we connect to the different data sources? So we need to know about the different connectors. We need to know how to update data source settings. How do I change them? And this is where things like parameters can come in as well. So I can make, as I move things through, I can specify, and I'll move from, say, develop to test. I can just parameterize my data source. So if I'm pointing at a SharePoint list, I can point to the parameter for that, and then it moves as I go through. How can I select? Maybe I might be creating a data set, or I might be able to use a promoted or certified data set. Is in there. Using Microsoft Dataverse is in here. There is a big push within all the Power Platform exams, and DA-100 comes under Power Platform as a heading, as Power BI does, about using Dataverse or Power Platform tools together. So there is a common theme through this exam about using Dataverse as a connector, more than, say, SharePoint. There's also how do we integrate Power BI with Power Apps and Power Automate. That comes up as well. But they're quite minor, but that sort of thing. And then also it drops into things like data flows. I'm a big fan of data flows. When would you use them and how they work? I'm not going to spend much more because there's a number of different points. So I'll give you a flavour for what's in here. Then we get to profile the data. What I'm trying to get at on this one is you need to be able to cleanse and transform your data. But to understand how to cleanse and transform, you need to understand what's wrong with your data. And there's an awful lot of facilities that are capabilities that are given to you in your data set. So how do you identify anomalies? How do you look at properties? And then we've got statistics that we can generate. So if you go into Power Query in particular, you can go and have a look at all the histograms and understand maybe what's my profile of my data or distribution of my data. And that may cause me issues. And I need to understand that. So I'm about to get into them. We'll talk about later about things like binning or grouping my data because I've got too many sets of data, or I might just, yeah, basic statistics. They do come in, but not in the same level. But yeah, be able to interpret them, know where to go, and that sort of things. So interrogate the data statistics. So yes, Matthias, yes, we do have them. Then clean, transform, and load the data. This is Power Query. So you need to know a little bit about M code, only a bit about M. The way I use Power Query, I use this. You do your transformation step by step, and it shows you the M code there. And you can sometimes you edit it a little bit, but it talks about you need to be able to handle data you need to maybe transpose data, so switch to the different. Because often you get a spreadsheet as part of your data. How do I move that from being in like years along the rows to put it years in the columns to make it a proper tabular data type that Power BI can handle? How do I join different data sets together? So maybe multiple spreadsheets. How do I combine those to get one data table? How do I handle null values or unexpected or missing values? So how do I sort out my data quality, which you'll get from your profiling of your data? How do you handle errors? Again, a common theme here is errors all the way through. Okay, so figure that out. That's what we mean by profiling the data and cleaning and transforming load the data. Again, this becomes very practical. If you haven't done a lot of Power Query, you will not be able to understand what we're going to be doing here. But just really, I talk about shape and transforming the data, so to shape it in the format so it's ready. And I'm going to come back to this later on, but Microsoft really wants you to do most of the work transforming the data before it gets into the data set. So Power Query is taking the data out of your data source and moving it into the data set. We want to do as much work as we can before it's in the data set. Yeah, get intimate with your data. Yeah, and you do need to understand your data on this. I often struggle when I'm training this to people because it's not the data I'm using is not their data and it's not relevant. So if you're dealing with finance people, yeah, there's some of the early talks about showing things like balance sheets and profit and loss accounts are great. But if you're dealing with people who don't know finance, you lose them when you talk about balance sheets. They don't understand the business domain. And I think actually DA-100 is a fairly popular exam. Microsoft don't publicize the number of exams that are taken, but DA-100 is up there as one of the more popular ones. And I think it's actually, I'll talk about now, I don't think it's a straightforward exam to pass. It's not an exam you can paper study for. It's a mixture of theory and practical, and it's very broad. You really have to know how to do things in it to pass it. Okay, I've got 4 more. I want to leave some time for questions. So the next section, this is probably the largest section, model the data. So 4 sub-objectives: design data model, develop data model, create measures with DAX, and optimize model performance. So this is where I've got my data, I've ingested my data into Power BI. I now need to go create my data model. I need to create my tables, configure them, configure table properties, configure column properties. I'll also maybe defining some quick measures at this point. And I will want to look at the dimensions of my data. So here I'll start creating relationships between my data, between my tables. So define my cardinality between my, that's my one-to-many, one-to-one. Many-to-many, and then the direction of the travel if we're doing cross-filtering. So cardinality, cross-filtering is one of those really key topics that will come up. I can guarantee you're going to get a series of questions around cardinality and cross-filtering on relationships. Then we talk about how do I like, okay, hopefully everybody here knows about creating a star schema, separating out your tables. So you're going to create, you don't just have one big fact table, you create your dimension tables, and really then going on to talk about creating snowflake schemas as well, to create more and more on that, to create better performance, create better cardinality, and enable more flexibility in my interactivity on my reports. Handling many-to-many relationships, we need to make sure we deal with those properly. And a big one, I know it came up earlier on when talks creating a date table. I'm a massive fan of that. I don't think I ever do a Power BI data set without creating a date table. How do I do that? I know somebody asked that in the chat earlier on, using the calendar function, using DAX. I've seen people use Power Query to create a date table. I tend to use DAX and create a whole series of dates. I use the calendar with the min and max functions on a table to get my date range. It's one of those things. Date tables are so powerful. Yeah, so you do it now, I do it in DAX. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Okay. And when we get this, when we get into data model, it's then applying the cross filtering. I'm going to create calculator tables. So again, I often create dimension tables by doing a calculator table. Another big thing is creating hierarchies. Hierarchies within a table. So I'll say there's a hierarchy here, and I'm going to show you one in a bit. Hierarchies. I actually create a hierarchy on my date table, so you get day, month, quarter, week. So day, week, month, quarter, year. I create a hierarchy there. The more hierarchies you are, you can actually create better, more relevant visualizations for your users. You're going to be talking about putting row level security in here. Row level security comes up here and later on in the exam objectives. Here's about actually doing it. How do I do it? So how would you do a row level security? What would you do? Is it anybody want to answer in the chat? I want to define a role. How do I specify what records in my data set are for that role? Go on. We're going to use DAX, some sort of DAX expression. Maybe some expression say, okay, this role, this record's in that. So yeah, so here's where DAX comes in again. And also setting up the Q&A features, enabling the Q&A features. Now there's the easy thing like adding the Q&A visual on, which comes up later on. There's also Q&A on your data set. Adding synonyms in comes in here. Again, it comes in later on as well. So maybe so I can answer that. We do a lot of things in the data set to make other things easier. Right, then we get into measures with DAX. So this is where you need to understand some basic DAX features. I know there's 200 odd DAX functions, but the key ones are calculate, sum x. Know this between sum x and sum. Understand what calculate does, understand what related means to filter out. I know some really good sessions earlier on that. Yeah, with dimensions. Yeah, okay, dimension no DAX. Yeah, but this is for the purpose of this, it's DAX. Understand how to do time series. So the classic ones. The way, if you've never really done measures before, is to use the quick measures. There's some really good quick measures that actually generate the DAX formulas for you for things like, especially around time series, around time intelligence. So you say, go compare this month with the previous 3 months, or this month this year with the same month last year. Do those. Go in and get those. Have a look how they've been done. And then say, okay, how do I create my own? And yes, some statistical functions can come in here as well. So statistical functions at my average. And I do occasionally do averages, but really that's about the most statistics I do, Matthias. But yes, sums and averages. But I say there's some difference between sum and sum x. That I think that's a really, really important thing to understand for this level of exam. You will be asked in the exam to not write DAX queries, but they'll give you a DAX query or DAX formula with drop downs, and you have to fill in the drop. So you get like 3 drop downs you have to fill in, and it's really confusing if you've never done it, because like, so is this calculate here or just calculate? So typically the drop downs are the same set of 4 options in 3 places, and you have to go and select them. It's very, very confusing. Okay, is that calculate? Does the calculate go before, or does it go in the middle? You need to be really cool with where the sum goes, the calculate goes, the relate goes. And you can only do that, really, I think, if you've built some DAX measures yourself. If you just read it, you don't take it in. You need to do. Yeah, but the definitive guide to DAX is going to take you a long while to read. And then performance. Performance is, yeah. How am I going to get performance? So mainly performance, there's 2 things for performance. It's reducing the amount of data. So we're looking at model performance from, okay, you got to understand, this is where you need to understand how things work, because every time you refresh a data set, okay, it's where do you do the work? If, for instance, I'm aggregating in my source, and one option, so say I'm getting some really slow performance whenever I click on a visual or go refresh the data, it's taking hours. What can I do? Well, the sort of things I can do is I can maybe, if all I'm doing in my Power BI data set is aggregating the data and creating measures to do that, can I do that aggregation in the source system? So all I'm doing when I pull my data in, I'm just getting aggregated data. It's always better to do your aggregations outside of Power BI before the data gets in, because you can reduce the amount of data coming through, the number of rows. Other things like reducing the number of columns. Don't have every single possible column that you don't need, because you can always add them in again afterwards. And go to Power Query, just add it into the query if I need to go get another column that's not there. And yeah, and one of the things is there's loads of information out there on. I think Power BI is really well served for reference guides. How do I do DAX and how do I do other things? But yeah, so there are some tools you can actually analyze within Power BI on the data. It'll tell you how long to go to this. I can't remember the tool it's called now, but you can go have a look at the query and see how long things are taking. So you can identify poorly performing measure calculations or things. I always say with measures are aggregations themselves typically. Is it cheaper? Yeah, DAX Studio, that's the one. Yeah, if you go and things. So measures will always take, they trade off CPU time against data processing time. So the more measures you've got, their measures are always calculated after you've ingested the data, and the more measures you have, the more data got processed. So it's going to take more processing time. Do calculated columns, for instance, that creates more data type, because every time if you create a calculated column, it's going to create a column for every single row in your data set, and that could increase the size of your data set. The bigger your data set, the longer it takes to do things. So you want to summarize, you want to aggregate, you want to also make sure your data types are correct. For instance, when you're doing relationships between 2 tables, integers work better than text strings. So can I use them? Can I change the data type? Can I convert? Maybe I want to transform my data to create an integer that I can join on. Tabular editor, I'm not sure. Okay, so that's the second one. I've got 20 minutes left. Let's see if we get through them. Visualize the data. So this is where we've built our data, we've ingested our data, we've built our data set, we've built our model, we've created all our measures, and this is where we get into practicalities of building reports. So reports are essentially easy, aren't they? I just pick some data, pick my visualization, and I'm done. Now, all of you know, if you've done anything seriously, there's a lot more to it. Anybody can build a visualization, create a report really easily. But what we get into here is, how do I choose the right appropriate visualization? When should I use a tree map versus when should I use a pie chart? The answer to pie chart is never. Just to make very clear on that. So understanding the different visualization types, so use bar, columns, and that sort of thing. And then all the formatting options on them. So we can get into, okay, on a visual, there's a lot of formatting options for whether I play legends, how I do the color formatting on them. I don't think Microsoft does not typically use external tools, are typically out of scope for all Microsoft exams, because it has to be the set of capabilities available out the box. Typically, there are occasional exceptions to that if it's like a tool that's really heavily used. So if you go to Power Platform, you may find the XRM toolbox, for instance, gets in there, but not much more. Or the what's the other one? The Ribbon Workbench. They're community tools that get used, but typically not. Okay, thanks, Sheila. Other things, conditional formatting, how to do that. I love conditional formatting. Adding slices, filtering, understanding history, slices and filters. Configuring the report page, how to do the layout, how to put the titles, and that sort of thing. And then if we look at dashboards, understanding how dashboards work by either, and understanding how they refresh as well. So understanding just like just pinning an individual tile or pinning an entire report page. So the live report page versus an individual visualization pin, how does that work? Also coming to his themes. So you've got themes you can apply to both dashboards and reports. You can actually have the same theme file for a report and a dashboard, but they actually are slightly different. Not everything within a theme applies to the dashboard, it applies to reports. I think there's more options within a dashboard report theme than there are on the dashboard theme. But you can have just one theme file, and the theme file, I think, is it JSON, or is the theme file JSON now, or is it XML? I can't remember which one. You create a little theme file, so make sure you've not done that, do that one. And usability comes in here as well. Yeah, I think JSON. Yeah, you can download the existing ones and edit them. That's what I do. Okay, question. Okay, right. To answer your question now, Mira, all Microsoft exams are scored out of 1,000. Your passing score is 700. It's not a straight percentage. Some questions are worth more than others. Also, if you get like a 3-part question with 3 drop downs, yes, you get partial scoring. So if you get 2 out of the 3 right, you get the credits. There's no negative marking. You do not get penalized for getting things wrong. So one of my advice for exams is always answer the question. I did a little test a couple of weeks ago. I actually took an exam where I didn't know the subject and I passed. But that's the exam technique. There's a way of passing exams. You can eliminate wrong answers. And I have my own theories about how Microsoft writes exams. Often you can, somebody pointed out in the link earlier, I'll point out there's a really good chat from a guy at Microsoft who's written loads of exam questions about how exam questions are written and why they sometimes turn out the way they do, why there's often a lot of text in the beginning. Those individual, because when you write a Microsoft question, the answers have to be 100% right, and the wrong answers, which are known as distractors, have to be 100% wrong. And to often make things wrong, you often have to add in text into the question to exclude it. So often what I look at and go, why is that sentence or that word in the question? It's to exclude that answer. So I actually went through and I proved that I can pass an exam. It was dynamics, finance and operations. I don't know that much about, I know bits about finance and operations. I know about some finance stuff. I know about balance sheets and I've done some integration with it. So I know it, but I didn't know the ins and outs of, say, supply chain management or commerce. But I just used my general business knowledge of being around business for a long time and some exam techniques to pass that. Power BI, if you've been around it a long time, you should pass. But there are probably things you've not touched. So things like accessibility, understanding maybe how things work a little bit. You may just use them, you may not understand how they really work. So you may need to do an explore about, okay, when does this visualization get refreshed? What causes it to get refreshed? Is it refreshed when I open up in a dashboard, or when I open up in a report, or when I refresh the data set? So understanding how that works can be important. When we get to dashboards, we also things like this is where we get into alerts and where we get into Power Automate. Using Q&A features, enabling that as well comes in here as well. Then for reusability, this isn't just for okay, for people who are, say, partially sighted, that comes in. This, for me, is probably the one of the more important ones. And Rich, I'll say you're going to get a lot of questions on this last bit. So this is things like bookmarks. So creating bookmarks so you can jump from one page to another page. If you, I teach a course which is how to tell a story with Power BI, where we talk about how we define a series of reports. Pages. So you often have a high level page which you drill down into. It takes you to another page and takes you deeper and deeper in the data. So you create a whole series of different pages for different end user communities to answer different questions. And the way we often jump through is we use things like drill throughs. So really understand the difference between drill through and drill down. They come up here. So let's talk about drill through and drill down. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm actually going to. This is my one and only demo I'm really going to do today. Yeah, but exactly right. It's done it. You can't. This is not an example. So drill through. So if I've got in here, I've got drill mode on or drill down. So if I click on here, I'm going to drill down. Here's some data, and I drill down. Click on organic search, and it drills down into my lower categories. So that's what drill down is. So I've got my data. It drills in, or I'm going to filter. If I click on organic search, it filters. That's drill down. I've also got some drill through. Drill through is going to take me to another page. I've got a page here called traffic channel. If I drill through to that page, it's going to drill down. It's going to show me that data for the organic search. So what it's a page which is telling me more information about organic search. It's just so I don't have to have I don't have to do separate pages for each type of. So if I want to do SEO, if I click on SEO. So drill through again. It's the same page, but it's now filtered by traffic channel. So understand that drill through and drill down are two different things. They sound similar. Understand how to configure those. Other things I really love, I can go create a bookmark. So I can go from here. I can go and create if I want. I can go create a. I go insert. Where is it? I can't ever remember where they are. I go create bookmarks in here. So I can go add in a bookmark, and the bookmarks then just become like little things. Like this is a bookmark. This was just going to take me back to the previous page, but I can effectively jump through to different pages with bookmarks. It makes it much more usable. So usability here is not just about being partially sighted and getting the color scheme so that we don't get red and green in here. So we get that. It's all about the other things to make the whole usability. I see some seriously terrible Power BI dashboards where just too much information, not telling a story, incorrect visualizations used. So it's about navigation. It's about using bookmarks, using tooltips as well. So if I've got tooltips enabled on here, so I've got it here. So I click on something on here. Yeah, here's so I've got my tooltip. It's just showing me information from that bar. It's from that graph. So it showed me the sales, it showed me the price band, which is the information on there. I can go into here, into this visual, and I can add extra tooltips. So I can go and show maybe some extra information. So maybe let's put the, I don't know, sales by product by profit. Or maybe you put let me just stick there. I'm just going to see if this works. So I'm going to stick the cost of goods sold in here. So now if I go on here, hover over it, and it now pops up in there. Did you know that you can actually have a page? I can actually have another page that can actually act as a tooltip. Did you know that? Yes, I think these are really great. These are really, really powerful. This is where it starts to get really, really cool. But you just need to know how to go add that page in. You're going to create a page. You have to go format it, and you have to say the page size is for a tooltip page. Yeah, great. But that's the sort of thing we're getting. I'm trying to give you an idea of the level of knowledge that you need to have for the exams, for the exam. When it comes to usability, yeah, I love that. I use them for user guides. That's good, actually. That's nice. So this is where it means it's this level. And I would say somebody who's just played around with Power BI a little will not have discovered that I can use pages for tooltips. It's not one of those things that's sort of in the beginner stuff. It's when you really start building, you think, okay, I want to make this a lot more visual. I want to start telling a story, providing more information. So the first thing is adding the extra columns on for the tooltips, and then maybe for a tooltip page, which can show huge amounts of relevant information. As well as that, for me, if I'm going to create a really great Power BI set of reports and dashboards, I'm going to be using drill down, I'm going to be using drill through, I'm going to be using bookmarks, I'm going to be using tooltips, tooltip pages, I'm going to be having navigation, because you want to really think about how it's user experience for me. User experience for me is yeah, telling us a story, but unless the user experience is good, you don't know that. Okay, I'm running out of time, which I knew I would. So let's go analyze. They've got final two objectives. Analyze the data 10 to 15%. This is where we're going to get things like top-end analysis. How do I do it? Using the Q&A visual, using quick insights. Another really important one is, have I got analytics? Let me go back to it. Where was I? I'll just show you this one. Have I got? I've got it on here. Can I put a? Can I put in here? Can I put a forecast line in? I'm not sure I can on here. Can I get forecasts? I haven't got the right chart type for it, but maybe putting in forecast lines, putting in reference lines, and then putting in I've got reference lines in here. So I haven't got reference lines. But if I did I've got a bar chart. I haven't got one that I've got ready. But yeah, maybe I could do here. Put reference lines in. Go add those in. I'm going to do reference lines. It's this time, yeah. So start putting, yeah. We've got one here. We've actually got an average line in here. I don't know if you can see it. We've got an average line along here. Put that in. So understand about average lines. Understanding then maybe, okay, I'm not going to add an average. I'm going to add maybe something else, not an average line, max line, maybe percentile lines, and then start doing forecastings with them. So how can I do my forecasts and then get my different ranges of forecasts? That comes into here. So we're getting to using these. If I've got time series charts, I can then do things like scatter and then do the play axis and then have proper played visualizations. I really love these. So yes, line charts has forecasts. And this also, again, grouping and bidding. I mentioned these earlier on, where grouping to make things say, when you got, this is a classic mistake often people make. They build their charts on nice little test data that works lovely. They get into live data, and it's just some massive lines. So you need to group things together or create groupings and biddings and understand where they're doing. Yeah. So take the user on a journey. That's exactly right. Yeah, I was trying to do something else with that. So I was trying to do a screenshot. I needed to do I was trying to show how regression worked as I was doing some AI stuff, and you can't. So I ended up just doing some little. I was using Excel in the end to create some regression lines and forecasts and things like that. So this is where we also get some of the AI power charts. So the key influencers chart. So three really important: the key influence chart, the decomposition tree. They're two AI powered charts or visuals you need to know how to use. Then finally, the last bit, this is where it gets more enterprising. So how do I manage? I'm going to work for an organization. We've got lots of different data. How do I manage those? So row level security comes in here again. So how do I tie row level security to Azure AD groups? So how do I make sure that we're linking so people, I don't have to manage every single user and set every single user up. But access to data sets. So you need to understand how workspaces work. So what are the different roles I've got in my workspace? So I've got my owner, contributor, reader. What can they do? And then, okay, what can they do with the data set? What happens if somebody isn't in the workspace? Can I give them access to the data set? Because when you share, when you share a report or a dashboard, you can also optionally share the data set with them so they can create their own reports. And I think it does that by default. You have to uncheck it when you come to share it. So you need to understand how that works. You need to understand how do I create how do I create my own certified or promote my own, I can't remember what the word is. certified or promote my own data sets to share them with other people. There's now the dependencies. You can go see actually from my data set where it's used, which reports and dashboards it's used from. So do that. We've also got we've got lifecycle management from dev to test to live. Understanding those as well comes in here. Sensitivity labels, which allow you to say, okay, I'm going to mark this data data as sensitive or not. Then that'll show where that shows. Okay, so that's really what we're into here. Right, so resources. There is a course. There's a 5-day course, DA-100 course. It goes into all these. There's a lot of labs. It's great. For me, it doesn't go into enough detail. The labs are okay. You can't cover everything, I think, in 5 days. Right. Microsoft Learn does include, so Microsoft Learn, if you don't know it, is Microsoft's online learning for all Microsoft projects. It's got over 1,000 modules in now. And some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. Some of them don't. They're very much, the idea is they're free to use. You can just go to them. It's docs.microsoft.com/learn. You go use them in what are called bite-sized chunks. You just start and it tracks your progress and you get points and badges when you've completed them. What I've done is I've created a collection, because if you actually go to the exam, it points you at some Microsoft Learn modules, but doesn't point you at all of them. I've selected a few extras and a few extra pages as well for this exam. So what the link there, I put it in the chat. I'm going to put all these links in the chat again now, in case anybody missed them. But I've got my link in here. So it's the third link. It'll take you to that Learn catalog. I'll skip that exam. We've also got some blogs and videos. Gregory's talked about his exam experience. He talks about having 2 case studies. So it's worth it. He talks about a bit about the exam experiences and the sort of questions you get. Doesn't give you the answers, but just tries to describe how it appeared to him. So it's always good. I always like to see how people have experienced the exam, and Gregory's got a good little summary of that. Nicola talks through some of the specifics. He talks through things like Power Query and data modeling. And again, he actually discusses the case study a little bit about how you process that. Hasham, who we've got on here, he did I ran a thing called Certification Saturday back in April, where we talked about lots of exams. We had 2 sessions on DA-100, one from Hasham. His was very good. He went very much into those first 2 objectives. I think he spent an hour going through those, giving lots of really good demos. So that's worth a look. It's an hour long. Then Sam's actually a dynamics person, but has now gone into his talk is very much around how to approach DA-100 if you're from a Dataverse background or Power Apps background. And he's picked up one of the really key things, that the exam is very much around how to get my data from its source through Power Query to DAX. So he talks about that, and actually it's got a lot of links to Microsoft Docs. Finally, I've got some other. These are Microsoft material that you can go use. These are really some hands-on build stuff. So how to go through is how to go and connect and check data, and then at the bottom is all actually the labs from the DA-100. So you can actually do the labs without going on the course. They're all available to you. So I just put some links in there, and I thought I'm going to add in Rishi's link into my list as well. I'll update my slide deck as well. So we are actually out of time, but if you've got any questions, that would be great. I'm not going to give you any was this in the exam or not, because I'm not allowed to say, but I've tried to, hopefully you've got a feel for the level of material, the level of knowledge you need to have. That was my purpose of today. So if you're a bit worried, the things I mentioned you didn't know, you need to do some more studying, some more hands-on. Other people say, yeah, I know about that. You go take the exam. So DAX heavy. I would say there's more than a few DAX related questions. There are more than a few, and they're very much around time series or aggregating, and you just need to, like, I think I mentioned calculate, understand how calculate sum x works, how do I sum related data using the related function. So they're not hard. You don't have to write it. You just have to fill in the gaps. And again, some of the links I just gave you talk more about those. I don't really want to talk about much more specifically. But it's not, I would say it's not DAX heavy. It's not, the last session was way beyond the level of DAX knowledge you need to have for this exam. Okay, so we've overrun. So should we hand over to is it Rishi next?
No, I've just gone.
Oh, you're gone. Oh, yeah, you before me. Yeah, I can remember. Yeah.
It's someone close to Rishi's name, Reza.
It's Reza. Yeah, okay, it's Reza. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this session. So, but I've got to go pick up my car from the garage before it closes. So I'm going to miss it, and I'll catch the recording. Okay, so I'll say thank you. I'll see you again.
Raz, am I good to start? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry about that. Yes, you are good to start. So obviously we're going to cover a lot of the stuff you went through. So you look at the wider Power Platform, I understand. So a lot of the stuff that was just mentioned in Julian's session